I sat down with a man last week who has commanded 6,000 soldiers, served in 13 countries, and managed billions of dollars in contracts for the U.S. Army. And he still talks about leadership the same way my dad does. And that mattered to me. His name, Jonathan McColumn. He's a Brigadier General, retired after 31 years in uniform. Born in Macon, raised in Warner Robins, and for a season of his life, he pastored a church right here in Newnan at Mount Vernon First Baptist. He carries a card in his pocket that his dad gave him. And it says, "It matters not how long I'm here, but the things I accomplish while I'm here on earth." And he's a candidate for the United States Senate here in Georgia. We didn't spend our time on talking points. We talked about what's broken in Washington. We talked about why the Republican Party keeps losing winnable seats in this state. We talked about faith, family, and the cost of progressivism, and what it actually means to lead from the front. And he told me something that I haven't been able to shake since we talked. He said that too many people in the Senate have nothing to draw from. Their cup is empty. They're faking it just to make it. This man's not faking it. He's the real deal. I'm Chad Reid with the Legacy Media Group. And the reason I had these conversations is very simple. Mission-driven leaders in this community deserve to show up online the way they actually show up in person. Now, it's my honor to bring you my conversation with General Jonathan McColumn. But I will say that I'm extremely, extremely honored to have you here.
Thank you.
Not just for the position that you're seeking, but for the title you bring and for serving in the military. You are a retired Brigadier General. Is that correct?
That's correct.
How long did you serve?
I served for a total of 35 years, a mix of reserve and active time, about 31 years active and the rest reserve, although it was probably under reserve capacity, but 35 years.
In the Army?
In the Army.
Okay. Where all did you serve?
Oh, my goodness. That's a good question.
Bullet points, highlights.
I tell you what, I've served in 13 other countries other than the United States. Served and lived, but I've often, of course, I've visited other countries. And just to name a couple of those countries, I was in Japan at a great time in Japan, serving there. And from there, I was in Thailand, I was in the Philippines, South Korea, and then on into Europe. Of course, I've done Germany, and went to Greece for a little while to do a mission there, and went to Estonia as we were looking at that Eastern Bloc, that Western Bloc protection from Russia. Did Poland while there, and of course spent a lot of time. I spent the preponderance of my time in the last of my career in the Middle East.
Okay.
In Kuwait, deployed Kuwait, Iraq, Jordan, Qatar. So I spent a lot of time in the Middle East. So I'm well versed as to the things I believe as to the things that are ongoing, the crises ongoing in the Middle East right now, and a couple other countries, of course, the United States, Canada, and some other places. But that vast experience will definitely change and alter the way you think and what you think about the world, what you think about the United States, and how the United States impacts the rest of the world.
You bring a different perspective than people who never left the country.
I'm sure I do.
Because you've seen what's out there. You've seen how other civilizations live and how good we have it.
Absolutely.
But also the road we're going down that could possibly ruin that.
Correct.
And is that what called you to serve?
Yeah, that is a major, one of the major calls is that to look at the United States from the outside in to your first point, you're just stunned. You just say how great is our God who created a nation such as the United States of America. We had some problems initially, but some things were corrected by the amendments to the Constitution. But we get to do whatever we want to do. We can go wherever we want to go. We can almost say whatever we want to say. And these are not the liberties that I have seen throughout the rest of the world. And watching the United States from a perspective, it is the melting pot of greatness with so many different people from so many different backgrounds, all focused on the possibilities that I can actually do something great. Now, from those who are on the outside looking in, their hunger for it. There's a passion to get into the United States to enjoy what they've heard about, the liberties, the freedoms, and they want to get there. Unfortunately, now, even witnessing from the outside, I see the growth of progressivism that's really, really destructive to the future of the United States. It hasn't hit Georgia so much right now, but in the Northeast, especially in New York, in Minnesota, Illinois, we're seeing New Jersey, just progressivism just taking off, and it's scary because it means that instead of individual responsibility, accountability, and the individual can be all he wants to be, there's a leaning that the government needs to be in control of everything, and the government can make the dictates and the norms of life that we live and make a better life. And the same people who are saying these things are the wealthy among us who achieved their wealth under a free enterprise system with competition, being the best they could be, and how now they can use their money to alter a system that gave them wealth just blows my mind.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That is so one of the biggest things, and I have a list of issues that I have with that, progressive system. I can't understand, I can't fathom. We live with the American dream.
We do.
And to me, the American dream, and you're sitting here like this is my studio. I'm trying to build a business. I'm trying to build a media company that works with other businesses, works on political campaigns, have my own network. Like, I have a big vision for this place. And for people to tell me that if I build this up and make a lot of money doing it, I'm supposed to give it to other people.
Yes. Amazing.
And I'm looked down on if I don't. Somebody's talking about Jeff Bezos and Elon. Because they make all this money, they should give it to this, give it to this. Like, who are you to tell them? I'm sure they give their money away.
I'm sure they do.
But who are you to tell them where to give it to?
Yeah. That's that key part of that progressivism that starts with that, from even the links with Marxism, although they tried to show that there are some differences, but with the proletariats, bourgeoisie bad people from Karl Marx, moving on up through this modern progressivism that says, now that you've made money, let's see how much we can take away. It hasn't hit Georgia, but there we noticed, we heard the governor of New York recently passing a new tax to try to tax those people, quote unquote, we call them wealthy. I don't know who made the definition of what wealth is. I don't know how much money one has to make to be called wealthy, but if you own an additional home, you're going to be taxed an additional amount of money based on the value of that home. So after a while, I said, how much longer before you take from people's money, before they run out of money, and then where else do you go to get more money for whom which you're taking from people? And these people, well, they're givers and they continue to give, but there's that new group, and they are, I would say that they're not even Democrat from the old Democrat Party, although they are, and that's what it's becoming. But it's like they've created this new notch that's further left. And it's up to them to try to figure out how much more money we can take from these guys. Is 37% enough? No, let's go to 48%. Well, 48%, why not go to 59%? Not 59%. Well, how much money do you want to take from someone's salary before you can say, now we're taking enough?
You're going to discourage people for reaching higher.
You will.
And when that happens, businesses close.
Sure.
The unemployment will rise.
Absolutely.
And you're going to have a lot more poor people
Absolutely.
than you do now. Because those of us that are trying to reach the American dream are the ones that create the jobs.
That's correct. Yeah, that's lately that model we're seeing that, and it's taking root. It was already, it's rooted, but it's starting to grow, and it's not based on, I would say, it's something that's factual. It's based on an emotional response with a perception that this guy is wealthy and therefore taking away from the poor people here who are not prospering. Now, I know there's crony. I know capitalism works, and it works a million ways. And I know we have crony capitalism too. I know there are people like that. But I believe that this nation is the most giving nation in the world. It gives more in money and our own blood through the service of military people outside, giving their blood and their lives. Georgia lost 3 soldiers 2 years ago in 2024. They were in Jordan, northern Jordan, on the border of Syria. They were killed by a drone attack. Sergeant Kennedy, I believe is her name, Sergeant Kennedy, and Rivers, Sergeant Rivers, and another that eludes me right now. But I've spoken with those family members, as a matter of fact, because we should never forget them. And I've made a commitment. If I become senator, I will never let them, Sergeant Moffitt's the other one, I will never let them be forgotten, because we give so much, because we have so much to give as a result of capitalism. Mm-hmm. What happens when capitalism goes away and then mediocrity sets in, when we're able to no longer give, where people, those who can give, can no longer afford because they're taxed so heavy? If we did that in Georgia, eventually companies are going to say, why should I establish a company when they're going to do nothing more than tax me? Well, it's time for me to move to another state. Or why should I go in business? Because the only thing that's going to happen is that I'm going to be taxed, and more taxes. We've forgotten about that, and I'm afraid that as we allow this progressivism to take place, when we don't vote and select leaders, select people who are capitalists, who have a biblical worldview, that means we want to make money, but we gotta think about the amount of money that we pay, a fair wage to our workers. Then the person then the owners, let's make sure we continue to grow our organization, putting more money into our business so that we can grow. That's research and development. Mm-hmm. And then growing the economy that way. That's how we grow. But what happens when we continue to elect people who don't think that way? Their way is the government can do a better job, can determine how to grow the economy. We're in trouble when that happens.
Well, I think we've shown, and we've been shown, that is not true.
Right.
I don't think anybody likes paying taxes. I understand why we have to. Mm-hmm. And I don't mind doing it if I knew that my tax dollars were being spent responsibly.
That's correct.
I understand that my tax dollars pay for certain things that we need. I get that. But when I see and hear the things that Doge uncovered,
correct,
where our money's being sent, that's not, when I vote, that's not where I vote to have my money spent.
Correct.
And so that's what annoys me. It really frustrates me. It has nothing to do with America's interests.
Correct. By the way, that is one of my initiatives that I would bring as a U.S. Senator. I call it oversight, strategic oversight. It is a way that it does something similar to Doge, except it doesn't necessarily remove people. I figure it this way. We have so many redundancies in our governance that if we figured out how to remove those redundancies in our systems of operations, if we could figure out how to follow the money when it is appropriated by Office of Management and Budgeting or wherever it comes from, when funds are appropriated or in a portion to and to all of the secretariats, to Department of War, we need a strategic oversight that follows the money and reports back so that we can see where the money went. If that took place, then Minneapolis would not have taken place where the Somali funds were taken. But we don't have good oversight. That's one of my initiatives. Let's set up a strategic oversight system so that we can see where government spending is going. Kind of like DOGE, except we're not getting rid of anybody. I believe if we did this, we can find enough money to not necessarily remove other people. We can for efficiencies, but create an effective and efficient organization, not figuring out how to return funds that saving taxpayers money, because we have to do something. We have a $39 trillion deficit. We have got to do something. We can't continue to say we have this deficit. We've got to do something about it. And I figure having a strategic oversight, this narrative over all of the government spending so that we can ensure that we're accountable. Because right now, all we do is Brewster's Millions. Are you familiar?
Oh, yes. Great movie.
At the end of the year, we're going to tell them, if you don't spend all of your money, you're not going to get more money, or we'll take a reduction. So everybody races toward the end of the year, spends all of their budget so that they on October 1st can get a new bucket of spending, perhaps with a 10% increase, except we've been, again, operating irresponsibly under a continuing resolution instead of having a budget.
So you get penalized for being under budget.
That's correct. You can get penalized easily because, well, you didn't need it, but I returned savings to the government, but you proved that you didn't need the money, so we're gonna reduce yours by 10%. No, we have a Brewster's Million things where organizations in the government know, spend all of your money. Let's make sure the whole organization spend it all. And then that will be the baseline, perhaps, of what we can get in the next fiscal year.
Well, and the sad thing is, like, even for a small business like me, I'm encouraged to do that.
Yes.
For taxes.
Yes.
If I have money left over, I'm encouraged to spend money and buy legitimate things for my business.
Correct.
To save money on taxes.
That's correct.
So it's like we can't roll it over because we get penalized for it.
That's right. And that's what our system of taxation has to repair that. And instead of punishing people, you have to reward achievement. That's the other direction that I like to see even as a senator. We have to reward hard workers and achievers. Those are the people that make America great and keeps the United States spinning. Those are the guys that are innovative. They're creative. They deserve to be rewarded, and I think so. That's why we like Elon Musk. And for those who do and those who don't, it's, there are other reasons. But this guy has on the one end, he has this space program. He has these vehicles that people like, et cetera, and he's able to spin off. And he has X. You got to give him credit.
He's one of one.
He's one of one. And there are so many others who are doing the same things, and we want to reward businesses. I'm big on what you're doing. I'm big on small businesses. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things I did do in the military. As an acquisition guy, we entertained a lot of small business to ensure that small businesses were vital and we could help them. 25% of all the contracts in the Department of Defense, then Department of Defense, now Department of War, were intended to go towards small businesses and those small business set-asides. So small businesses are big to me. That's what America is about. It is these small businesses that are doing the production in all of these cities, and we want to ensure that the government is not so overwhelmingly on your backs that it prevents you from growing through taxation or policies that are redundant or other laws and rules that prohibit you or prevent you from growing.
Side topic real quick. She doesn't get a lot of the headlines, and probably a good thing that like Secretary Hegseth, Rubio, some of the bigger names do. How do you think Secretary Loeffler's doing as small business administrator?
You know what? I don't know. And when
I don't know either, and that's why I was.
It's a very good question, and let me just say this: she has a background. She's done well in business. I trust that she understands business. If you want someone to do something, pick someone who's been successful in something. I call it past performance. Past performance is an indicator of the future. Pick someone who's done well in the past; they'll do well in the future. Find someone who's done nothing or hasn't done anything that's consistent with the job, then we have problems. That's called DEI, as a matter of fact, or nepotism. And I believe nepotism is bad for us. So I think I haven't seen enough right now to make a determination on how she's doing, but I do shudder when I think of people who are selected for jobs and they don't have the background of past performance to do the jobs. So I haven't followed the small business. I've done that. I did that so much. I just know that I am for the businesses. I want to see the government just get out of their way so that they can be productive. I want to see the government in contracts do full and open competition, competitive contracts. We know that small businesses are a little bit slow. They need a little time to grow. So I like the set-aside, that small businesses, giving them the opportunity to grow. Then they're out of the set-aside program, and now they're up. It's up to them to succeed on using their own competitive edges and how they grow businesses. So I like that. So we'll see how she's doing after a while, I guess, and look at some of the norms and look at the policy changes and see how that's impacting them.
Yeah, you're talking about bringing in people who have experience and expertise in certain areas. I've always thought he should at least, or any president should at least approach Dave Ramsey to come help balance the budget. Hey, can't be any worse.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I tell you. Once again, on that, and not even to delay that, one of the examples of that, of the oversight and how we can look at balancing the budget by reducing the government without pulling too many strings of people too quickly. The government, in procurement in the government, we have this thing called Federal Acquisition Regulation. It is the FAR. It governs how we spend money. It's across the Secretariat. But in the Department of War, an example, you have the FAR, and it's very thick. I would say that it's about 7 to 8 inches thick or more. But under the FAR, then, you have a defense FAR when you're operating the defense. So that's another Federal Acquisition Regulation. Under the defense FAR, then you have the Army, Air Force, and Navy has a Federal Acquisition Regulation supplement. So you've got all these policies, perhaps redundancies, too many actions. It creates a bottleneck. It's just too much. What if we were to concisely remold this, the federal acquisition policy? Maybe look at the terms of the types of contracts that we use. We have firm fixed price contracts, firm fixed price contract with this, cost plus contracts, cost incentive fee contracts, labor, time and material. Can we synthesize this a little bit to make it more friendly and courteous, reducing the policies? If we did that, instead of increasing more and more redundancies and policies, we could actually save the taxpayers money, I believe.
I think that's a great plan. That's a great plan. Well, we jumped right in it. So I want to do a quick backup, and we'll hit the highlights of your origin story. Okay. And then we'll move right back into the campaign. You were born in Macon?
Born in Macon, Georgia. Grew up in Warner Robins. So just a brief time in Macon, and did all the grade schools in Warner Robins. Graduated from the high school in Warner Robins. Okay.
And then you were a pastor?
I pastored right here in Newnan, Georgia. Yeah. Amazing how that happened. I was just minding my business, assigned to Fort McPherson, decided to drive down here for whatever the reason, just looking for a church to attend, and pulled up in this church and went inside, and they acknowledged who I was. And 3 Sundays later, something happened with the pastor, and before I knew it, I was asked to serve as the pastor on an interim basis for a while. Wow. So I had to gain special permission from the military, because in the military, when you're active, you're there 24 hours a day. So I gained special permission, unique permission to pastor while I was in. So I would travel to Newnan Sundays and during the week, and served in the pastoral role. I got to meet a lot of the people in Newnan, Georgia. It was a great experience. Worked very well with the people, trusting them, teaching and discipling, and trying to encourage growth encouraging cultural breaks to do those kinds of things. And of course, that didn't last long because the military followed up and said, "You're deployed. We're deploying you for this and that." So I was preparing to let it go. So I stayed. I probably was there for no more than a couple of years or less, but then went on and deployed from here on to the Middle East.
Wow. That's something. Small world.
Very small world. Back in Newnan, Georgia. So I'm actually home. And great people. Love them much. If they knew I was here right now, they'd probably be tickled pink, some of them.
Well, I've just moved here. I'm from Rome, Rome, Georgia. And I've lived all over the Southeast, down in South Florida, North Carolina, and from Rome. I met this beautiful young lady who lived here and moved here. And I moved here March of 20. So I moved here and the world shut down. And then got engaged, got married. Our 5-year anniversary is actually 2 days from now on Friday.
Oh, congratulations.
So thank you. So it's I'm still fairly new to the area, but I love it. It's a great city. I don't know why I told you all that, but it's a great city, and I love this community. It's great people, great leaders in this community.
I believe that.
Great businesses. And it's why I started this. Like, I wanted to get to know other business leaders, other community leaders, and just really get immersed in that world. And I fall in love with this place all the time.
It's easy to fall in love with Newnan.
It
It's
is.
great. Good. It's got a great mixture of everything.
It does.
So it's you could easily move here and find your clique, your area, your restaurant, your outings, etc. I got a chance to know the coach, a very famous coach here. I can't think of his name. Seldon was his name, and one of the schools is very popular here. So I learned a lot with him and his family. And once again, if they knew I was here right now, I think they would just be they'd be tickled.
That's great. Yeah, it's getting involved with the chamber and just really seeing what the business world here is about has been nice with all the small businesses. We actually have an event tomorrow called Politics and Pancakes. So it's through the chamber, and all of our local leaders like Matt Brass, Josh Bonner, all of the elected officials that represent Coweta is going to be
good.
talking.
That's pretty good.
It's put on by our chamber, but the keynote is going to be the state chamber president.
Okay,
and there's pancakes.
That's good. That's good. I love it when leaders can come together like that, especially on that allows for camaraderie later.
And people can ask questions about certain bills that are being passed in
Wonderful.
Georgia. So
it's great.
Yeah. Plus there's pancakes. Can't go wrong with pancakes.
No, that's really good. Definitely makes for a sticky cause
nice.
Yeah.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. That was nice. Well, okay, so let's pivot back into why we're here. So what made you decide, besides God calling you, of course, because it's really a pattern in your life, because God opened doors militarily, pastorally, the
right,
all across. What made you decide to run for Senate?
Well, I think it comes as running for the Senate is very interesting. The Senate's actually a very difficult job if you look at it. I made a determination. First, let me just say that I happen to have a mentor who was great all my life, and his theme was that I keep his card is in my pocket. It says, "It matters not how long I'm here, but the things I accomplish while I'm here on earth. Time is in God's hands, so am I." So looking at that, I completed the military. And by the way, the guy who did that was my father. His name is Reverend H.L. McColumn, Harold McColumn Sr. Great mentor, full of wisdom, gave me a lot to work with. I retired and saw that the Senate was going in a direction. I couldn't believe that Georgia was electing people who did not really seemed to have the requisite experience, didn't have any leadership. I'm big on leadership. Very big. I think the reason that even Congress is failing is that we have people who are serving in Congress who don't have the background. They've never done anything. They've never owned a business. They've never done a budget. They've never done cybersecurity. They've never done human resource management. They've never done operations. So if they haven't done any of those things, how are then they jolted into a position where they're now writing policy on these things? It's stunning. So I could see why there was a brouhaha in Congress. We have a lot of people who don't have experience, no background. So I decided I looked at my background, and I saw when a couple of folks were running, I said, why don't I do that? It's part of my servant leadership, serving in the military, serving in the pulpit, serving in school. So it's part of my service. And I said, well, I've gotten a lot from the military. Let me try to go back. I think I can do something that others aren't doing. One, pull Georgia back together again. Returning home, it seems like there are two Georgias. There's a black Georgia, a white Georgia, there's a Democrat Georgia, Republican Georgia. It seems to be separated based on certain things. I believe there's one thing that a leader does. A leader pulls people together, people who like and don't like him. But it's your responsibility to pull people together. I thought that maybe under the auspices of a biblical worldview, under the Constitution and Declaration of Independence, coalescing people, I thought maybe if I ran with my background as a leader, as a minister, as an acquisition guy, as a sustainer in logistics, as an educator, and having the technical background to do this, maybe they would be receptive of that, and I can look forward to helping to pull us back together under some ideas, under the ideas that made us free to grow Georgia and prosper us and move into the right direction. So I saw that first that Herschel Walker was selected. I think he's a great American. I just didn't think that he had the requisite skill sets or could articulate a plan or a vision. And as a result, I see that there are four or five things in conclusion that I believe that I could add to the Senate that nobody running right now or did in the past in the last election could do. And that was no one can understand national security. No one has a national security acumen. No one understands the Veterans Administration like a senior level veteran. Nobody understands intelligence, the intel that we do to execute our missions in the military. No one understands homeland defense, as that was a part of the job that we had to do. And of course, the Senate Armed Services. Nobody understands the military as a guy who served in the military. Those are so unique that while I have some of the commonalities that the other guys have and had, I bring that to the table. So I said, I bring a uniqueness to the table. I've got the leader part done, the servant leader. I've got the biblical worldview. I've got those things that I just mentioned. I think I would make a great senator to help us fiscally, with a biblical worldview, pulling people together, black, white, pulling pieces and businesses, giving them a fair opportunity. And those are the things that I thought that I could do. So I said, let me sign up. Why not me?
Why not you?
And here I am today.
So you mentioned it. So you ran in 16.
In 2021.
20, I'm sorry. Yes, 20. And then 22.
Yeah, in 22, I'm sorry. It was 22, the last election. It was 21, yes. 22 within the last Senate election, yes.
Yeah, so Herschel got the nomination for that one.
Correct.
I think you're right. If he'd have been more in tune in the political world and more articulate in explaining his positions, he would have been a good candidate in Georgia.
Yes.
Because the name recognition.
He had the name recognition
without a doubt.
That's correct.
So, he had that going for him. He could have beat Warnock.
Yes.
And so now 2 years later, Ossoff is up. And he's, on paper, policy aside, he's very articulate.
Correct.
He's strong on the stage. He speaks well. He's a great communicator.
Correct.
But then when you start looking at policy and his voting record,
correct,
it's a different story.
That's correct.
What gives you the confidence that you could beat him in a general?
Correct. For the very same reasons, the same characteristical traits that you mentioned about him, I believe that I have the same, except I'll be able to speak to them with experience. I'll be able to show, I think, that a young Jon Ossoff is a good American. But he has no background. He has never led an organization. He has never come back. He does not have the breadth and depth of experience that you would want someone to write policy. If he writes policy, what is that policy going to be on? Something academic? Mm-hmm. Because he doesn't have any of the strategic level experience. He has no executive level experience. So he can't help fix problems as a result of not being a part of the problem himself. Coming up through the military ranks, I've always been a part of the problem, which means I was a part of the solution. And I've driven those solutions over years. So I'll be able to show, I think, that as a result of we've had the opportunity to see him operate in the last few years. I would ask, what has he done? Where has he been? Where was he when the illegals were coming across the border? And he didn't do a thing about it. He saw what our eyes saw about the president. We saw that Joe Biden was in a bad state. We never heard him say a single word about it. We've seen him just be an appeaser, unfortunately, and not being someone who could be an innovator, creating policies. I mentioned I've got 5 initiatives. What are his initiatives? He hasn't done anything for the people. What about the military bases? Whom would you rather have if Robbins Air Force Base in Warner Robins was about to undergo a BRAC, or a base realignment and closure? Whom would you rather have sitting at the table to grow Robbins Air Force Base? A general officer who understands military infrastructure, who understands the other military bases and how they work? Or would you rather have a guy who's never had any military experience, has never led any organization, hasn't written any policies, and doesn't even understand how the concept of national security and how it works? Whom would you rather have negotiating this for you? I think you'd rather have the general officer with executive level experience.
100%.
So that's why I say I would proceed. I would say, while this guy sounds good, there are many people that sound good, but let's open the door and look at their experience. Let's look into their record. And this is what I bring to the table. And I wouldn't spend all my time talking about Jon Ossoff. This is about me being the senator. So let me tell you about what I've done and where I've been. Let me tell you about the billions of dollars that I've managed on behalf of the United States government. Let me tell you about the 6,000 soldiers and civilians that I directed and managed as a general officer. Let me tell you about the Congress that I had to visit and report and talk to, about the Homeland Defense programs that I was a part of to try to help in the states that I was responsible for. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you about all the lives and the sub-leaders that I managed and those who also were successful as a result of my efforts. Let me tell you about the biblical worldview that's missing from him. So I believe that I have enough to talk about to persuade people, and I've already started doing that, meaning I know his voters. His voters, some of my signs are in his voters' yards right now. Some of the small, even if they're small amounts, some of his voters' deposits or contributions are in my coffers right now. I believe I have a greater chance to show people that Jonathan McColumn can be a senator for everybody, not just for Democrats or Republicans, but for everybody under the auspices of that biblical worldview, under the Constitution, under the republic that we stand.
So I want to ask something to follow up on what you just said, and I'm naive enough to believe this.
Okay.
But because you said it, do you think there's still hope for unity and to bring people together? Because I think there is. I will always believe in hope.
You know what? Faith has to be a driver of success, and it is the hopes of people who are in very bad situations. You know, to tell to bring a military guy that's deployed, that's been in a war zone, to talk about hope. Man, I would take one of those guys over anybody, because the hopes of getting out of a horrible situation that you've seen, you know that by applying certain efforts you can. So I do believe that hope's available for our state and for our nation, but we've got to make some checkered moves or some chess moves. Sometimes it means convincing people that your best friend does not have your best course of action for you in terms of growing you out of your situation.
Mm-hmm.
It means looking at somebody who might be the same color as you and saying that person, while we share the same culture, that person's fundamentals are inconsistent with mine. And it means persuading people. But look, if the Republican Party is going to be successful, it's not going to be because of money. Jon Ossoff is sitting on $27 million already. It's not going to be money. It's going to be the person who has the ability to take his voters. That's how we win. We're not going to be able to compete with people who've made a lot of money in their lives, and they're willing to now take their money to alter the way the United States runs by giving it to people such as Jon Ossoff and filling his coffers with money. How much money did she ran for the presidency?
Kamala?
How much money did she spend? About $1.4 billion, 1.3 to 1.5 billion.
And the party's still in debt because of it.
Exactly. Again, it's not money then. We do need it. Don't get me wrong. You need a certain amount to get your message out. But I believe that if you have the grand ability to manage to articulate the things that people need, want, and must have, you can win. An example, let me give you several of them. In a nation as wealthy as ours, I believe that we have a free enterprise, a capitalistic system. But even me, I believe there are three groups of people that we unfortunately, we have to look after. That's babies, the people who are disabled, and the people who are extremely elderly who can't take care of themselves. You say, well, doesn't that go against, is that like social? No, it isn't. To the Republican Party, I would say we don't like abortion. Well, if we're going to save the babies, sometimes it means we're going to have to give to help save those babies. If people are disabled, some disabled people can't help themselves. They can't fend for themselves. And some elderlies, just like my mother. For 5 years, I took care of my mother when I retired. She didn't have a lot of money. She didn't get a lot of assistance from the government. As a matter of fact, she survived because of me. I did home health care. I had to take care of that, and that was my mother was my responsibility, and I understand that. But it's nice when the government can provide just a little bit Medicare, just a little bit to help. And I admit she received Medicare. It wasn't a whole lot. It wasn't a lot at all. But it was just enough to help me do what I was doing, and she was my responsibility. So I say, you've got to understand, look into people's eyes. Jon Ossoff, again, comparison. Jon Ossoff, Jonathan McColumn. Jon Ossoff and I both have a white coat. We both work in a laboratory. We both have clipboards, and we're working. The difference is Jon Ossoff's lab coat is clean and white. Why? Because he hasn't been in the laboratory of work. My lab coat, on the other hand, is stripped. It's soiled with work, soiled with experience. And with my clipboard, although it's there every now and then, you got to look up and look into people's faces instead of looking at statistics and data. Look up and see their hurt and try to reach out and help them. That's a major difference between Jon Ossoff and McColumn and how I see the world so much more differently than he does.
Yeah. Do you think that there's hope for unity for the state and for the country?
Yes, I do. Back to the question, I do think there is, but there's always a subordinating conjunction to that. That but is the people have to have the mind to build. It's out of the book of Nehemiah in the Bible. The reason that the walls were reconstructed by a guy named Nehemiah, he said, and the walls were eventually built. The negativism were two guys named Sanballat and Tobiah. They were very bad guys who were always not helping with the building process, tearing things down. But Nehemiah said, the reason the wall is going to be constructed is that the people have the mind to build. If we can once again just get the people having the mind to build collectively, we can turn this thing around. Now, the people have got to have the mind to build. So my success is contingent upon the people looking to say, yeah, we want this guy because he's a leader. If they select people out of other than this guy's the best, other than this guy's proven, other than this guy has a record, other than those situations, then we're going to revert back to using other criteria and we'll lose again.
Mm-hmm.
And the nation and the Georgia will not grow, and people will know that they're heavily dependent upon somebody to feed them instead of teaching them how to feed themselves. So yes, there is hope. It is in God through a biblical worldview. It is trusting and hoping that the Constitution will do what it says it's supposed to do. Getting rid of DEI. Getting rid of nepotism. There's nothing worse than somebody choosing their relative or their best friend when you're the best. It's frustrating. Mm-hmm. So paying attention to those things gives us the hope, and our hope has to be in a God who established our nation. And he says, blessed is the nation whose God is Lord.
I think, like I said, I believe in hope. And I think that we're not too far gone to be unified again.
I agree.
But it does take the right leader.
Yes.
And it does take us electing the right leaders to do that.
Yes, absolutely.
And, one of the things that you spoke about that I told you off camera that had me and my dad wanting to run through a brick wall for you was, like you just talked about, leadership. Mm-hmm. And that connected with both of us, especially me, and that's why I wanted to have you here. Mm-hmm. Leadership matters in all walks of life. Mm-hmm. I always say that it starts with self-leadership, because if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead your family. You can't lead your team. You can't lead your soldiers, and you can't lead the state or the country. You got to lead yourself. Mm-hmm. What is your definition of a good leader when it comes to a senator or anybody in government?
Sure. A leader is one who has the unique ability to garner the attention of people who like you and people who don't like you, but to persuade them to accomplish certain goals and ends that will bring about a great value. Mm.
It builds influence.
It does. And a leader has to have the ability to influence. That influence comes from past performance. You can't create a leader in 2 days.
Right.
You can't create a leader in a year. A leader has clinging cans behind them. Mm-hmm. Those clinging cans are cans that are tied to that leader from all those assignments, all the jobs, all the education, all the past performance. All the things that leader's done equals and can tell you whether or not you have someone that's good. And it has to be a heterogeneous mixture of things, not just education. That's not enough. It has to be some experience that goes along with it.
100% agree. And I believe, and you touched on this earlier, I believe that to have that kind of influence, it takes servant leadership.
It does.
People following you have to see you lead by serving others.
Absolutely.
And serving them.
Absolutely. They have to see that you didn't acquire your money, that you do or don't have, in ways that are inconsistent with our values. Mm-hmm. They have to see that you are ethically astute and you're mindful that you can have only one wife if you're married, if you are a husband. They want to know that they can count on you when it gets going, when the tough gets going. Mm-hmm. And they want to know that you're fair with all people, that DEI is not how you make your decisions, but you make your decision based on meritocracy.
Right.
The best person wins. But they also have to know that you support all people. And they have to have that with confidence.
This is a personal feeling, and I'd love to get your take on it. So you mentioned DEI a few times. Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100%. Mm. I think one of the downsides of the way DEI is portrayed is if someone is qualified and they get labeled a DEI hire just because of the trigger word and the buzzword that it is,
right,
but they are qualified, they get off to a behind the eight ball kind of scenario out of the gate because it may be looked upon as a DEI hire, even though they really are qualified. Do you agree with that?
I agree. It can be tricky with this DEI. It's tricky in the sense that,
and I feel bad for those people.
Yeah. And you don't want that label. You don't want someone to think that the reason that I'm here is because I'm a male and I'm black, or I'm white and I'm this, or I'm the son, so I've got the job. I mean, the newest Supreme Court justice will forever live with an asterisk. She's there because she was black and a female. She may be well able and well capable, but we'll never know that because she did not have to compete with other people in a pool of folks, of people. And as a result, she's now holding a seat that she did not compete fairly for. She was appointed there. That's an asterisk in life. That no matter what she does, even if she is the best jurist, the best justice, in the back of everybody's mind, everybody knows she was selected because Joe Biden was looking for a black female.
The vice president too?
Correct. Same thing. For vice president, that's correct. Same thing.
That's powerful positions just to put somebody in to check a box.
Absolutely. And Americans don't like that.
They voted against it.
Yeah. Americans don't like submitting an application knowing that they were the best and somebody else was selected. It's demeaning, it's hurtful, and it's inconsistent with the Founding Fathers' intent of meritocracy.
Yeah.
It's inconsistent with the Declaration of Independence, all of our historical documents, and most importantly, it's inconsistent with the biblical worldview. No, you select the best person. That's what you do. And it has outreaching effects. And people have to know that the leader for whom which you're choosing is the best person. Went through the rigors of testing to ensure that we have the best qualified person in the job. If you've never done something and you're selected for a job for which others were, it's frowned upon. It's negative.
Yeah. You feel like you're the best person.
I think I don't feel it. I fact it. And when I say I fact it, I would ask anybody to say, look at my past performance. Nobody has more past performance than I do. No one's led an organization of people. No one's led 6,000. None of the candidates have led 6,000 people. None of them have managed billions of dollars, as I aforementioned. None of them have the amount of education that I bring to the table. Military don't like to talk about your accolades, but I'm finding that I have to talk about it. I have 3 master's degrees I've achieved over the years, and one of them is national security, graduating from the Army War College. I've been through the fire. I've been through the rigors. No one has the technical background that I have, and nobody has what it takes to respond to what our government needs right now. Our government needs health care, needs oversight, someone to defend our bases in Georgia. Those are some of the things that I bring to the table. The health care is a big one, an example. No one knows. I recommended, let's tear down the borders of state. Let's build 5 regions composed of 10 states. Let's allow people then to buy insurance and competing in these 10 states. Several things happen. The insurance companies have now decreased their overhead because they don't have to build a headquarters in 50 states. They only have to build, 5 headquarters now. They can have subs. So they pass their savings on to their customers. Also, the insured gets to compete in all those 10 states among all those insurance companies. What does that do? It lowers insurance prices. So that's another one of my initiatives that I'm bringing. That's what a leader does. You think about this. You develop courses of action, and you apply them and then you test them. And then you do a risk analysis to determine how they work, to ensure that you're mitigating the potential risk that goes along with it.
One of my core values is leading from the front.
Absolutely.
And just hearing you describe you against everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
Ossoff in particular,
Mm-hmm.
plus the other Republicans in the primary, you can't compare resumes with yours.
That's correct.
And especially with someone like Ossoff, who falls in line. He never leads. You never hear him leading a bill or leading a point of view. He just falls in line with everybody else.
Signs on. Mm-hmm.
And that's not leading.
No.
That's a follower.
And I don't want to interrupt you, but he can't help it. And I'm actually empathetic toward him because he has nothing to draw from. His well of experience is empty. He had maybe 2 jobs before he was elected a senator. One of them enriched by a small group of I forgot how it worked, but 2 jobs, a small portion of this and that. But he has nothing to draw from. He can't think about the time that he had a disciplinary problem in his command where adultery took place in his command, and he had to do an investigation to determine its fact because it would impact morale. He doesn't have that. He hasn't dealt with discipline issues. He hasn't dealt with the employee whom you've got all these evaluations. You've had to evaluate all these people. And one person comes back with an evaluation problem based on fact, and you've got to make sure your evaluation system is fair across the board. He hasn't had to deal with that. So then how can he help you write evaluation processes for the United States?
Yeah.
He doesn't have a well to draw from. His cup is empty. He's faking it so that he can make it. And thus far, we'll see what that means to the people of Georgia.
So right now, other candidates in the primary have more name recognition than you do because they're in Washington already.
Correct.
And then one of them has the backing of Governor Kemp.
Yes.
What would you tell people why name recognition can only get you so far? And why someone like you, with your experience, should be the one to go against Ossoff in November?
Correct. The best way to do this is just to give them the illustration of the last 3 cycles for the Senate run. All of these individuals had 2 or 3 things in common. They had name recognition, and they were multimillionaires. They were known. We can name each one by one. David Perdue is a great American. He's a great Georgian. A history of politics in his family. He lost. Kelly Loeffler, name recognition, was placed in a position to serve as senator for a little while. Multimillionaire, still lost. Herschel Walker, extremely popular. Multimillionaire, credible, good American, good Georgian. He still lost. Continuing to use the very same criteria that we used for the last 3 cycles, why should we expect anything different? Somebody once said, if you want something you've never had, then perhaps you need to do something you've never done. So I'm thinking, I would say to the people of Georgia, it's time to do something you've never done. Elect this guy. You may not know about him, but he served you. He's already served you for 30 some odd years. He already took an oath. He's already had a security clearance, a top secret security clearance. He's already tested and tried. Why not him rather than using the same criteria that we've used in times past?
Not only serving for 30 years, but shares the values,
Correct.
the biblical values.
The biblical values that Georgians share. That's right.
Yeah.
62% of Georgians are Christians. And to the veterans, there are 700,000 veterans in Georgia. They know what it takes to climb up through the ranks, and they know that if someone's able to go through this and then finish honorably, I've been through what they've been through. So I would expect to have 700,000 votes already at minimum from those veterans, because they know what we have to go through, and they know their veterans, the issues that they have as veterans, and we finally have a veteran to help us with our veterans' issues.
Last question. What do you want people to say 10 years from now, and hopefully you're serving in the Senate, 10 years from now about your contribution to the state of Georgia and to this country?
The most important thing, I think they will be able to say that he remained the servant leader that he was years ago. He's the very same guy. He actually made produce. He did what he said he was going to do. I think that means the most to me. It may seem little to someone, but a servant leader is something that was given to me by that mentor I mentioned. And to complete life, it's like the military. If I was a senator, look back. When I look back over my military after I was on my way out and I had my retirement orders in hand, I looked back and was able to say, I did it. By the grace of God, I was able to achieve this. I can look back and say other people made general officer as a result of my actions. Some other people were successful and received other awards. People were promoted. My mission was done and achieved, and I left an example for others to emulate. So I'm okay with my military service, and I hope people will be able to say the same thing as serving after I finish from service as a senator, that Georgia turned around. People get along. There is a oneness of command in Georgia again. People see Georgia as one. It's not separated along the lines of color and anything else. That Georgians are more prosperous, that there's a more upbeat hope about the United States of America in Georgia. Yeah. Those are the things that I would look forward to them saying.
Wow. I love that. Coming from a voter, I am looking for someone like you. I'm looking for someone that I can be proud is representing our state. And you definitely fit that mold.
Thank you.
So it's not because you're here. It's because I knew that hearing you speak at the forum. Whether you came here or not, it was that really hit me hard. And thank you for sharing your vision. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And the many sacrifices that you made for this country and for what you're willing to do for the state.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. And of course, thank you for taking the time to come to this little studio and
Good.
And share with people watching, because he's up against some more well-known candidates. But like he said, he is the most qualified to win back Georgia for the Republican Party and to represent us in Washington. So thank you so much.
Thank you again.
It's been an honor.
Absolutely.